Have you ever wondered what it's like to work in law enforcement? Here on Behind the Star, we share stories about the Orange County Sheriff's Office, Central Florida's largest law enforcement agency. From forensics to dispatch to the deputies on patrol, we'll talk to the brave men and women who protect our community. This is Behind the Star, the official podcast of the Orange County Sheriff's Office. Welcome to Behind the Star, the official podcast of the Orange County Sheriff's Office. My name is Jon Busdeker, your host here at Behind the Star, and I got a good episode today. I say that a lot, but this time I really mean it. I got to hang out with these two for months and months while we shot a video, which is online right now. You can go check it out. It's all about basic recruit training. I learned a lot, and you guys are going to learn a lot listening to today's podcast. I'm joined with Corporal Ken Jorgensen and Master Deputy Autumn Chouinard. Did I say that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. They are both in the training section, and we're talking all about basic recruit training today, which for short is BRT. Corporal Jorgensen, I'm going to start with you, because I know you're excited to be here on Behind the Star. Why don't you explain exactly what BRT is?
So our basic recruit training program, which is BRT, is our 8-week program that students do once they complete the academy. So once they come to the agency, they go through our 8-week program, and that's where we teach them all the high liabilities and the way the Orange County Sheriff's Office does things.
So you said 8 weeks. So explain this a little bit, Autumn. You start, first you're a deputy, you go through the academy, you're already sort of certified to be a law enforcement officer, but we go through a little bit more training. Explain it a little bit.
Sure, it's more advanced. So it's the Orange County Sheriff's Office version of the academy, but the way we do things. So we start off with firearms, then we go into more high liability, such as our vehicle training, of course, report writing, we have to get that in there as well. And then we end with over 50 scenarios, and then our high liability of defensive tactics and all that kind of stuff at the end.
Let's break this down week by week. Do you guys do the same thing every single time? Because I say that there's different sessions of this. It goes 8 weeks, but we have a lot of deputies that come into our agency, whether they're brand new or maybe they work somewhere else and they come here. So is it sort of the same thing every single time, or do you mix it up, or how does that work?
So the way the schedule is set up, and it's perfect that we have Autumn here because she does most of the scheduling for us, is that we try to keep it consistent. But Autumn, you want to go week by week?
All right, let's start week 1. I just got out of the academy. I'm ready to go be a deputy, but now I got to go through BRT first. Week 1, where do we start?
Sure. So one, we group both our pre-certified, which is our prior law enforcement, and the academy in one class. We run 4 classes per year, all of being 8 weeks. We start off with just an orientation day, getting their feet wet, welcome to the sheriff's office. The next 6 days is going to be firearms. So we do 3 days of handgun, shotgun, and 3 days of rifle training.
So before we go to the next week, what am I learning? First week, I mean, I assume I've done some of this in the academy where I've shot a firearm and hopefully.
Right.
But what are you teaching folks, and what are you going through?
So we just do a more advanced version. So we kind of take it, we call it back to basics, but it is more advanced. So we go over more intensified sight pictures, trigger squeezes, getting a good stance, making sure that everyone is on the same page as we are, because they all did come from different areas. It might be in Valencia, it could be Seminole, or it could be out of state. So we want to make sure everyone's on the same page as we are.
So Ken, when you're going through this, because you teach a lot of the firearms classes,
Yes, sir.
How are the deputies good yet? Or are they not very good, are there different levels of sort of training and how good they are with their firearms?
So essentially the academy teaches you how to shoot to pass the state qualification. What we want to do is we want to make you a more proficient shooter. And this is when we start introducing our response to resistance matrix and our use of force policies as it relates to Orange County Sheriff's Office, so they can understand when you're allowed to use force, those type of things.
Explain that use of force matrix and policies just briefly. What does that mean?
So essentially the response to resistance policies dictate when we can use force and when we can't, and when it's reasonable, those type of things. So we start it with firearms because that's the first high liability thing we do, and make sure they understand when that response to resistance can be used. Understanding, we preach a lot. Listen, you need a sight picture. Every round that comes out of that weapon is a response to resistance, and you're accountable for every round that comes out of there.
All right. So when I'm out on the range this first week, I watched a little bit of this. So there's parts where you're sort of close to the target, you're farther from the target, you're shooting around barrels. Is that all part of the training?
It is. We want to make sure that we cover varying difference of distances to include utilizing cover. We want to make sure that if our deputies end up in a gunfight, that they're utilizing cover so they don't get hit by bullets.
And so do you teach them things that maybe they aren't sort of accustomed to? And what I mean by that, I feel like when I was out there, like sometimes they were shooting with their right hand, but normally they might shoot with their left hand. Do you teach them like, okay, just in case, here's how it's going to feel shooting with your other hand, just if something were to happen to your dominant hand that you normally shoot with?
Right. We want to prepare deputies going out on the road to be able to act in any circumstance. And if they hurt their left hand and they're left-handed and they still have to fight or shoot with their right hand, they need to be able to do that proficiently.
So, Autumn, is it like a pass or fail? Are you doing qualifications, or is it just, here's how to do it? We hope you do really good, but it's not really a pass or fail thing.
No, it is pass or fail. They are issued a handgun, shotgun, and a rifle, and they do have to qualify on every single weapon.
Are most of the deputies proficient like in one of them, or all three, or some better at the rifle and not as good at the shotgun, and it's just all a matter of trying to get them better and have them practice more?
Sure. I mean, obviously, the more you practice anything is the better you get. We have to have, obviously, a basic qualification, but that's why we get that kind of out of the way first, and then we go into the next, 2.5 days of trying to make them a little bit more proficient on all three weapons.
Is there one that's more challenging than another?
I would say the weapon system that gives people the most challenges is a shotgun.
How come?
Well, people are scared of the shotgun, right? It's got a little
It's
bit.
loud.
It's loud. It's got a little bit of a kick to it, and people get a little bit nervous when they start shooting that. So it's a challenge that we have to get the students to overcome. However, everybody that comes through BRT has to qualify in all three weapon systems.
And there'll be some video on this on our website, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. I'll put it up there. You'll see some of the shots of when I was out there with them shooting their firearms. It's interesting to watch because you don't always get to see that as the public doesn't usually get to see people train on firearms, but they do it all the time. And I know they're we have our deputies go out and train on these things, and they get to see, as you said, the different sort of weapons systems, as you call them, because not everything is the same as just shooting probably a shotgun or a rifle or a handgun. They're all a little bit different.
Right. So throughout their career, they're going to go out every year and they're going to show proficiency. They're going to qualify every year. We're actually above the state requirements for our standards with our qualification times, things like that. So we make sure we do a good job in our training section.
All right, week one, I'm done. We go through the firearms. What's week two?
So after firearms, we move on to the rest of the weapon systems. So we have 2 days of Taser, which they will learn about everything from how to utilize it, how to function test. They will actually get shot with the Taser so they know how to feel, how it feels, and if somebody were to take it, what are we facing? After that, we go into our spray, baton, our hobble. We go into handcuffing and searching, and then we break them down into our split groups.
So all the different tools there. I want to start with the first one, with the Taser, because once again, I was out there for that, and there's some video of this. All of our deputies who go through BRT have to get tased. Explain why they have to get tased, besides for Ken's enjoyment.
Well, it's sad that you didn't actually get tased.
I was busy. Somebody has to hold the
next
camera.
time.
Yeah,
Next
next time.
Yeah. All right. So the main reason that we want them to feel what it feels like is, one, they can understand what they're doing to others, right? They can understand how it works by the practice they actually get. 2, if somebody takes the Taser and it still has the cartridges in it, if they were to get shot with that, it creates the neuromuscular incapacitation, meaning it locks the body up completely. You're now allowing the bad guy or whoever may take it to now have access to the other weapons, and we don't want that. So it sort of helps them articulate that that's not a weapon we want, in the bad guy's hands.
And does it hurt?
Yeah, absolutely. The easiest way to describe it is I'm sure everybody's had a Charlie horse in some point in the night, usually in the middle of the night, right? Picture that on your whole body. So every single muscle locking up like a Charlie horse.
Okay. Do the deputies have to go through, the ones that have to go through it, do you think they're nervous about it? Or is it like a day they don't look forward to?
Absolutely. It's absolutely horrible.
Okay. All right.
But it's only 5 seconds.
It's
right?
only 5 seconds. But I've heard. So on top of that, you mentioned like the chemical spray. They also have to feel that, correct?
Yes. So they're actually exposed to that in the academy.
Okay.
So we don't actually do that in basic recruit training because they are already exposed to it. However, it always seems to be a windy day when we're out there practicing doing spray. So some of them tend to get exposed again on accident.
I can attest to that because I think I was out there and they were spraying something one day and we're all coughing. And they're like, who's doing that? But I've always heard that hurts worse than the tase. Some people say, I don't know if Ken doesn't feel that way.
No, you can spray me all day long. Just keep the taser away.
But like you said, they practice the taser. They don't just get shot. They actually do. They practice it.
Right.
They learn how it works, and then there's different parts of the body that you're supposed to aim for with the taser. All these things are gone over in BRT.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so week 2, we've got all this stuff done. What's the next thing that we get to do?
So the next thing we do is divide the groups into 3. One of them will go to law enforcement vehicle training. The other group will do some defensive tactics and some just classrooms. And then the third group is report writing and all of our paperwork. And
that's like the boring day, right?
I try to keep it entertaining, but I mean, I can only do so much.
It's important. I'm sure paperwork's important, but I'm sure that's not the most exciting days for the BRT folks.
Right. So that covers 3 weeks, and then they just rotate through those 3 weeks. And then we get into our high liability towards the end.
Okay. Now, Ken, do you go out to the LEVO, the law enforcement vehicle stuff?
I do not.
Okay. Autumn, are you out there?
Yes.
Okay. I was out there too.
Yes.
So explain, that's not just driving around in a car. You get to do a lot of kind of cool stuff. Talk about some of the stuff you get to do during that.
Right. So each year, all of the agency goes through law enforcement vehicle training. They set up a particular set of criteria, maybe areas that they see some deficiencies in. For the basic recruits, we have to go through maybe some, I hate to say basic, but I mean, it is advanced to them. It's a little bit more advanced than the academy. Obviously, intersection clearing, utilizing their lights and sirens, clearing around cars. They have to go through tactical park. They'll go and throw stop sticks, and there's actually a course at the end where it's timed, and they have to put everything they've learned into the course.
Okay.
So all the right turns, left turns, U-turns, but it's in a timed course, and it's pretty intense.
So that's on top, because I was out there one day when they were doing like traffic stops and stuff. That's separate from.
Separate.
Okay, so you're talking about like the tactical things, but there's another day that you go out there, at least one day, or maybe there's more than one day, where there's like scenarios, right?
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit, because that was fun to watch.
So essentially, we have role players from within the agency. A lot of our instructors come out, and we have the students get into a car with an FTO, and they will start practicing their live traffic stops. And essentially what that does is it gets the nerves out, number one. So when they do their first traffic stop, they're not, sputtering over their words. They know what to do. And then it allows us to in a controlled environment, give them different scenarios, from compliance to people being mean or rude, yelling at them, those type of things.
You mean not everybody's nice to you when you pull them over?
Some people get a little angry.
Okay.
But it allows us in a controlled environment to be able to see if we're having any issues with specific students, if they need help in other avenues to get them up to par to how Orange County expects us to deal with the public.
And once again, some of this is in the video that I put together that's on our website and on social media. During the scenarios, it's interesting to watch because the person in the car gets like a script, kind of, not a script, but like they get sort of, it's like a choose your own adventure almost, where they're like, number one, you're going to be a compliant person, you're nice, you're apologetic, whatever, but then it gets down to like, you're not going to be so nice this time, you're going to argue, you're going to say this, you're going to say that. And the person who's the deputy, they don't really know what they're going to get that time, like real life. And so, one time it might be really simple, like, oh, thank you, I'll slow down.
Right.
Next one, they're getting out of the car, running away, and they got to figure out, like, well, what am I supposed to do?
Right, and one of the most important things with scenario-based training is to have it standardized. So you get the same training as the person that's going next. So those role players get that script that's been written out by BRT staff, and then we're able to have that systematic approach to the learning environment.
All right, so speaking of vehicles, sometimes you also teach deputies how to maybe take people out of vehicles in case they have to do that, and you do it the proper way as well. So explain this. What is a vehicle extraction, and why do we teach this?
So essentially, vehicle extractions are removing a subject from the vehicle when they don't want to be taken out of the vehicle or they refuse to get out, those type of things. It happens a lot with people that are driving under the influence. They don't want to get out of the car. And we've immobilized the vehicle. That way we can take them out of the vehicle, number one, safely, to where the vehicle doesn't move when we take them out. Number two, we take them out with the minimum amount of force necessary, but to ensure the safety of the public.
And once again, I think these are things that you don't think about, or, I mean, you guys think about them, but maybe the average person doesn't think about that. You think, oh, you probably learned all this stuff in the academy, and they might have learned a little bit of it, but there's so many things that could happen probably during a deputy's shift
Right.
from traffic stops to, like you said, DUI stops. And if it were to come to, okay, I got to get this person out of here or else they're going to drive away and maybe kill somebody, I have to know how to do that properly. So like you said, I didn't even think about that while I was watching it. The car might just drive away because they might not be in park yet.
Right. I think
that's fascinating.
The last time I used a vehicle extraction, it was a drunk driver driving the wrong way on JYP. And we had to immobilize it, and he refused to get out of the car, so we had to use those vehicle extractions to get him out.
Okay.
So it does happen quite a bit. And we do it so well that there's a low chance of injury to the person that's being extracted.
And that's probably the overall part of all the training, is to keep everybody safe, not just the deputy, but the people that we're protecting, I guess, or serving here in Orange County. It's not just to keep us safe, but also to keep them safe as well.
That's
100%.
correct.
So simulator training, that's another part of BRT. There's so much to this. We could probably talk about each one individually, but we're going to go through everything during this podcast. Simulator training, talk about the simulator a little bit, because we do a lot of real life scenarios, but the simulator can go sort of beyond what maybe we could do with actors and actresses. We could do this all with the simulator.
Sure. So the simulator is a 300-degree stage. Basically, you hop up on a stage, and there's 5 screens that are 300 degrees around you, and they do play a video basically, and you're supposed to react and talk to the video. Some people find it a little awkward, but if you immerse yourself into the scenario itself, it can be very beneficial. We have everything in there from just basic talking scenarios all the way up to like active shooter drills as well. So we're able to do one scenario with one recruit or one deputy and one instructor, which is really nice.
And those scenarios can go one way or the other. I mean, you can start and it's all going to be worked out and it's calm, but then you can also have it go sort of crazy, and the deputy who's going through the training can learn the different ways that it's going to go.
Correct. So each scenario, based on how the deputy is responding to it, we can choose different prompts to make it react differently. So we could even run the deputy through the same scenario a second time, and it would do something completely different.
So Ken, what's the benefit of doing scenario training?
The benefit of scenario training is actually getting students used to dealing with real life situations. So it's one thing to read in a book, watch a video, and everybody learns differently. We try to focus on adult learning philosophies and try to expose the students to every sort of learning that they can. That way, when they get out in the public, they know how to react.
And I sort of mentioned this, but there's scenarios in that training that we just couldn't possibly do as an agency. I mean, I won't give all of them away in case some of the people listening who are going to go through it, but there's some that are suicidal people, and there's some that are school shootings, and like those are ones that we could do that, but it would be very difficult to do it. And so you can do these in a 365-degree or 360-degree simulator over and over again and have different sort of outcomes. And like you said, the deputy can go through it and see all these different things that, I did it right here, I did it wrong here, and learn from it as well. And it's just things that we couldn't do as an agency on a daily basis.
Correct. Yeah, it just takes a lot of manpower, whereas the simulator, obviously, is just one instructor.
But we also do real life stuff, because I watched that. So while some folks were in the simulator, and we do a lot of this out at Valencia East Campus, there was also some more real life scenarios where the deputies did go over there and sort of talk to people, and they had to actually do it. And that was really interesting to watch as well.
Yes, so it's very different, obviously, talking to a screen versus talking to an actual person. What's nice about the actual person is we can feed off a little bit more of what the recruit deputy is saying, versus the screen only has a certain number of words that are calibrated into it. So it is different training, but they're both good in different aspects.
So when you do that training with real people, is it sort of the same every time that you go through it? Like every time you do an 8-week class, I guess.
Yes.
Do you sort of do that same scenario? Because the one I saw, once again, I hope I'm not giving it away, it has to do with a disturbance and somebody gets hit and then they have to sort of deal with it. Or
right.
Is it different all the time?
No, it's the same. Well, obviously we try to make every single class better and better. As of right now, the last class and this class and the next class are probably going to be the same scenarios, and we slowly make them better over the years. But for now, it's the same 50 scenarios that we would run each class through. Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And it was interesting to watch because, I'm seeing it as they're sort of trying to calm the situation, and they don't really know what's going to happen. But I kind of do, because I saw it 5-6 times. And I'm sure it's really fascinating for you guys to watch as deputies, they're doing this wrong. We got to, and this is probably when they're supposed to make mistakes, correct?
Right. So we want to foster a good environment for learning. And by doing that, we allow them to make mistakes. We don't want to stop them in the middle of a scenario and be like, oh, you can't do that or you shouldn't do that. We want to let them work through the scenario, let them make the mistakes, and then let them learn from those mistakes. And if the mistakes are really bad or egregious, if you will, then we will have them do a scenario that's not exactly the same, but like the one that they just went through, so they can actually implement the new strategies instead of making the same mistakes.
Yeah, because like you said, this is the time to make mistakes when it is a scenario and there are other fake actors, really. They're deputies who are playing these characters. And so it's good that they can do this now, because you don't want them to do it when in real life. You'd rather them do it right now. But also, I think I'm sure it's beneficial for them. They probably can get sort of these things out of the way and then probably revert back to it when they are out there in real life and say, oh, I remember that during training. I did this, and I shouldn't do that in real life. I need to do this the right way.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, just like with anybody and anything we do, the more you do it, obviously, the better you get. But if you see something, you're going to know how to react to it better the next time, right? So if let's say you're driving, okay, I like to revert driving because everybody drives, right? The last time you were following too close, the guy hit the brakes and you almost hit him. Well, let's back off a little bit, right? That's the same as what we do. We put them through a scenario. We show them the goods, the bads. And maybe next time, let's try this instead. So that's what we're doing, is building sort of that muscle memory of what to and not to do.
And we should also say, a lot of these deputies, some of them have worked in other law enforcement agencies before, but a lot of them are brand new. So this is all really brand new to them. I mean, they are not out there for years and years and years, and they're getting a refresher. This is all brand new to them.
Correct. Yes. So, I mean, we have everybody from, they were, I worked at Sonny's before this, right? So I was, worked at a restaurant. We have all those types of people as
the
well.
Barbecue place?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. What'd you do there?
I was just a server.
Oh, not just a server. You can say you were a server.
So we have people that were just basic, worked at restaurants, worked security, whatever it is. But we also have people, there's somebody in this class right now. He has 36 years experience, but he's learning things that he's never learned ever at his other agency, because they didn't have this type of training there. So we get all array, but it's all good training for everybody.
Is there one part of the training during the 8 weeks that really does trip some people up, that it's just kind of hard, or is everybody different?
I would probably say the most not difficult, but the one that starts to get in people's head, if you will, is the combatives portion.
Okay.
So the defensive tactics that we teach, it's something that you can't just learn in an hour. These are things that you have to learn the techniques and then continue to practice. And that's something that we strive to get the students and deputies to do, is to take what we give you and then continue to learn these types of things.
Is there, so after not even after the 8 weeks, but is this all sort of leading to the last week where do you test them on everything? Or like I asked earlier, is there a pass fail, or is that sort of as it goes? You just sort of teach and reteach and it's not like there isn't a pass fail at the very end.
So for BRT, the pass fail portion is the firearms. And then besides that, what we're looking for is, can somebody react to deadly force situations, response to resistance, those type of things. That's what we're looking for. Mm-hmm. They're going to get hands-on training through the FTO program when they get out on the street. So the only part of BRT that's really pass-fail is just understanding the firearms.
What's the last thing you do in BRT?
So we have our two big scenario days, our day tactics and our night tactics. And it's essentially a culmination of everything that we've gone through the past 8 weeks and trying to get them to put it into kind of into practice for those scenario days.
And we should have mentioned this at the beginning, or I should have. I'm the host here. The deputies, they're not on the road during BRT. This is their job for 8 weeks, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, they show up at 8, they leave at 5 or whatever the schedule is that day. So it's not like they're doing this sort of part-time, they're sort of half-trained. Like, this is their job after they've gotten out of the academy or they've just started here at the sheriff's office. This is your first 8 weeks at the sheriff's office, correct?
Yes,
correct.
For 40 hours a week for your first 8 weeks. This is what you're doing. You're training only.
And then when you're done with that, you mentioned FTO, right?
Correct.
Explain what that is.
So essentially, FTO is when you actually begin to on the job training, if you will. So you're in a car with a deputy, and you're learning how to do the job. So that comes after the full 8 weeks that we do in our section.
And how long is the FTO process?
So it's 14 weeks,
okay,
give or take. When I say that is, if you have 2 or more years prior in the state of Florida as a law enforcement officer and you're doing well, you could potentially accelerate through the program, which would only cut at the most 4 weeks out. So you're still getting 10 weeks with an FTO. Or it could be an additional 3 periods, which are 2 weeks each. So another 6 weeks of training, depending on how you're doing. You might need a little extra time with somebody in the car. So that's why I say 14 weeks-ish.
And not every agency does this. Some, once you pass the law enforcement academy, you become a police officer, correct? At other places.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So we are way ahead, and our training is way beyond what other agencies around the country do.
Why is that?
Because we're better than everybody else. We want to make sure that we, at the end of the day, put the best end product out there. Not only for my backup, I want to make sure I have good backup coming to help me out.
Like Autumn.
Right.
Or vice versa. You're probably her backup, right?
Exactly. But we want to make sure that the citizens in our county get the best treatment, all right? The best product that they deserve out there, and that's our end goal.
Do you get people who have finished BRT, finished FTO, come back and say, you guys did a really good job, or I learned a lot, or I used this during my actual job when I was out there?
We get that a lot, and the people that can really benefit from it and come back and tell us are the people that have been at other agencies. They've seen how other agencies do training, how they were brought up in law enforcement, and then they come here and they go, wow, my eyes are opened. We have somebody in the class that we're doing right now where they continually tell us this is the best training that we've ever had. And 20, 30 years in law enforcement, that tells you something about how we're doing business here.
It's because Autumn's training them.
Absolutely.
I don't know about that. Do my best.
All right. Well. If you're interested in becoming a OCSO deputy, go through the process. But this is going to be part of your training. You're not just going to be able to pass the academy and get out there. This is all going to be part of it as well. So I get a lot of people that are interested in becoming deputies, and they listen to some of the podcasts, and this will probably be one that they want to listen to because, as you said, it's not like this at every other agency. So if you're signing up here or wanting to become a deputy, you got to go through this. So this is a good one to listen to. So thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for training our deputies the right way and making it safe for not just our residents, but our deputies as well.
Appreciate it,
Of
John.
course, thank you.
All right, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to Behind the Star. You can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Also, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Until next time, I'm Jon Busdeker, and this is Behind the Star.